For more than a century, Stars and Stripes has been one of the most unique news organizations in the world. It's funded by the U.S. government, read by troops across the globe, and yet by law, it operates as an independent newsroom protected from military command influence. But that independence is once again being tested. Recent moves inside the Pentagon, including a modernization plan and calls to refocus coverage strictly on warfighting, have raised new questions about whether the Defense Department, if I may still call it that, is attempting to reshape the mission of Stars and Stripes. The newsroom itself says it continues to report independently, covering conflicts around the world and the issues affecting service members and their families. But concerns are growing among readers, journalists, and press freedom advocates about where the pressure could lead. To better understand what's happening and why it matters, not just to the military community, but to journalism itself, we're joined today by two people who are deeply involved in protecting that independence. First, Eric Slavin. Eric, you are the editor-in-chief of Stars and Stripes, right? You are the guy. You are leading the newsroom's global coverage of the U.S. military, the communities it serves. Eric, how large is your team right now?
Well, we have headquarters offices in Germany, Japan, and Washington, D.C. From there, we have remote offices that range everywhere from England to Bahrain to Tokyo. We do try to cover the world wherever U.S. service members are.
As you likely know, I had Max Lederer on my program back in November, and I asked him as a courtesy. And your website still calls the entity the DOD, right? Or would you prefer, for this interview, we do DOW? Which do you prefer, sir?
Well, the official name remains the Department of Defense. We will refer to Department of War in stories when it's within quotes. But until Congress actually makes the change, then the formal name is Department of Defense. So that's what we use.
And that's where we'll stay. Jackie, if I may call you Jackie, your real name, or the name I have here, is Jacqueline Smith, but everybody calls you Jackie. Is that correct?
That's correct. Jacqueline is my byline, but call me Jackie.
You serve as the Congressional Authorized Ombudsman for Stars and Stripes. Is that correct? Define what that means. What do you do?
That's right. So it's a position created by Congress going back to the 1990-91 Defense Authorization Act. And the position reports to Congress, too, House Armed Services Committee specifically. So what I do, I monitor the paper, looking for balance, fairness, answer readers' questions, respond when reporters are having difficulties, such as with maybe public affairs officers blocking them from covering something, which they have a right to cover. So I advocate for editorial independence for the newspaper.
All right, so before we dive into the story behind the headlines and the pressures facing Stars and Stripes today, we're going to take a quick moment to hear from one of our sponsors that helps make these conversations possible. And that's one I believe you guys know, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR. Eric, correct me if you're wrong, but on the chair of your National Advisory Board is its executive director, Rufus Friday, and you have decided to have a statement of values, core values, at Stars and Stripes. Am I correct, sir?
That's correct. We wanted to emphasize what we stand for: accuracy, balance, and telling the truth. And we felt that it was right to let our readers know that and what we believed in and why it's important to do these things.
Well, with that being said, we're going to hear more about CFINR, and we'll be back with this conversation right after this.
Hello, my name is Walter Hussman. Our family has been in the news business for over 100 years. Journalism includes two parts: reporting the news and providing opinions. But in recent years, there's been too much opinion appearing in news reporting. This has eroded public trust in news reporting to the lowest level of any U.S. institution. To address this, we started a nonprofit, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting.
The Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR, is on a mission to rebuild public trust in journalism, one newsroom and one classroom at a time. We champion the effort to have news organizations and journalism schools create and prominently display their own clear, concise statements of core journalistic values. Learn more by visiting the Center for Integrity and News Reporting site at cfinr.org.
Eric, let's start with the basics. Many people outside the military community don't fully understand the unique role and history of Stars and Stripes. Can you explain how the newsroom operates and why its independence is so important today?
Sure. Well, there are any number of places where troops will find public relations about the military. This was a newspaper that was created first, going all the way back to the Civil War, when some Union soldiers were able to commandeer a press in Bloomfield, Missouri. Since then, it was reincarnated in World War I, and it has been around since World War II, in the Pacific in 1945 and Europe in 1942. And even then, General Eisenhower referred to it as the soldier's paper and said, hands off, this is for them. And I can't think of many other instances of the United States really putting its money where its mouth is in terms of promoting those constitutional values. If you are willing to actually allow and fund to a certain extent a newspaper that you understand will hold you to account at times, I think it's a really wonderful expression of those values in the First Amendment.
All right, now you're getting some pressure. I mean, we report on this, where, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is pressure to refocus your coverage on, quote, war fighting. From your perspective, what exactly is happening right now? Do we have that reporting correct? Is there pressure, and is it being applied?
Well, we would like to know what it is that the Pentagon is looking for when they talk about reporting on all things military, because we've been reporting on all things military for a very long time. We do try to provide a complete reportage where we tell service members about what's going on more generally in the world, but we cover just about every topic there is within the military already. When we saw this memo, of course, we were concerned. When we saw the tweet on January 15th, we were very much concerned. And we reached out, and we did not receive a response from the Pentagon as to their intentions.
All right, Jackie, your role as the ombudsman, you've defined it already before our break, but what kind of authority do you have, Jackie? I mean, what is your rank when it comes to doing your job, and what buttons can you push? What levers can you pull as the ombudsman?
The levers are with Congress, and particularly the House Armed Services Committee, Senate as well. And so I can bring issues to their attention, and they can act. They can ask questions of the Pentagon. Do they get answers? Not always. I can bring the authority of the position to the commands to say and remind them that reporters do have a right, Stripes reporters in particular have a right to, for example, go to community events on bases. And why do they have that right? Not just because they're journalists, but also being DoD employees, they have security clearance. So they can't. So to have somebody in a position independently remind them of the authority that Stripes journalists have, I think carries some weight.
The reason we're having this interview is I read your column that you put out. You wrote that Pentagon censorship hasn't happened, quote, yet. And that word caught our attention. Were you raising a red flag in that column saying, keep an eye out? And that's why we're having this dialogue.
Yeah, being realistic. So the memo that came out March 9th, and by the way, it wasn't given directly to Stars and Stripes leadership. It was found. But anyway, the memo and the interim policy speak of Stripes' editorial independence. I think they're giving it lip service, because when you look at the details and the execution that they want, there is not the editorial independence there. Now, it hasn't gotten to the point where DoD is saying you cannot publish this, as far as I know. or you must publish that. But, uh, being realistic, being journalists, anything can happen.
Eric, Stars and Stripes reporters are covering conflicts as we speak. Am I correct? They're out there, and there's a lot of conflict going on right now. What does that reporting look like today? Take us inside your newsroom. What's going on, especially now with the war that's broken out?
Sure. Well, I woke up around 4 a.m. on February the 28th, which shortly before that was when the strikes in Iran began happening. And I heard from our Bahrain reporter that missiles were landing not too far from her apartment building. So we got to work very quickly. Shortly after those missiles began in Bahrain, we had a story up in about 5 minutes, just a short 3 paragraphs. Hey, this is happening. Continuing to update that. We had about 8 to 10 journalists in a chat room exchanging what they knew, cobbling together stories. I would say within a few hours, we had about 5 different stories ranging from what was happening in Iraq, Jordan, Bahrain, Iran itself, any statements that were coming out of the United States. We had a number of different things going on. And of course, we were trying to talk with service member families to see how they were being affected. And I would say, in terms of response and page views and engagement, the response was very good. And I was very pleased with our coverage.
It's got to be tough to balance the responsibility of covering the hostility by also serving your core readership, which, again, as you just mentioned, is the service members themselves. But people forget it. It's also the families of those service members that rely on your journalism. Am I right, sir?
Military bases are not just service members marching. They have schools, they have grocery stores, they have everything you'd find in a city, and they have people who are concerned about their children. And are they going to school next week when there's an attack? So there are a lot of different considerations that go beyond just the actual battlefield.
You mentioned digital. You still publish a print product. I mean, a lot of print, I understand. How are you balancing the digital world today? How important is that audience for you now? And the multiple platforms that you now put the brand across in an ever-changing ecosystem, if I may ask.
Well, we do have a digital first philosophy at that point. I think it just makes sense. And that we are very active on social media. We're looking at events, we're any number of ways to reach our audience where they are, because we do understand that a large percentage of the military is between the ages of 18 and 24. And they're not the easiest group to engage with when it comes to news, but we are always looking for ways to do that by giving them news that is really directly relevant to them. At the same time, print does matter, especially when you have readers who are at really austere bases in the middle of the desert, who may only have a spotty commercial internet connection. You need a way to reach them. And we found, I believe, at one base in Kuwait, we had over a 90% pickup rate with our print product. So that need still exists, and we want to make sure that we can reach our audience in any way we can.
Jackie, as Eric stated, your brand's been around since the Civil War. It's published continuously since World War II. In your opinion, why is independence so historically significant in your role in maintaining it?
Well, it gets to credibility. The troops reading the paper and their families, and the audience that Stripes has, which is very particular, they need to be assured that what they're reading is independent. It's been scrutinized by journalists, and there's no interference. There's not a message coming from the Pentagon or from the government in any way.
Jackie, your audience today goes far beyond the military community. At the same time, news organizations everywhere are feeling increasing pressure to maintain their independence. What lessons can our audience of local news publishers learn from the challenges facing Stripes today?
I feel like we're all in this together. What is happening with Stripes right now is not isolated. We have seen restrictions on the press, attempts to restrict the press in this administration, right? Famously back in the fall, where reporters were told to sign this 21-page, basically a loyalty pledge. And being professionals, they want to do it, they walked out. And so we have seen more and more restrictions. Stripes is part of it. It's part of the overall movement to control the message, control the press. We all have to care about that.
Do you believe your current legal protections for Stars and Stripes are strong enough to safeguard this independence? Do you think you need a little extra help right now? I'm asking, are you sleeping well at night, comfortable with what's in place today?
There is protection in place. It could be stronger. We're looking for ways to make it stronger. Um, what we have seen, will that assure continued editorial independence? That remains to be seen. We have seen in government lately, not adhering to court restrictions, bypassing Congress. So we have to be vigilant and try to make stripes as strong as they can be with continued editorial independence.
All right, Eric, what message would you want to send first to your readers, particularly the service members who may be worried about the independence of Stars and Stripes, wanting to make sure there is a journalistic entity who is doing the investigative journalism they need to hear the truth? What message would you like to send to those readers today?
Well, I've heard from many of those readers, there are always going to be people with different opinions, but on balance, it's all been very supportive of our mission. And we've had people bring up some of the stories in the past. For example, there was one that talked about how they weren't getting the gear they needed in Iraq. And after we did a very lengthy and exhaustive investigative piece on that, they got the gear they needed. So the message is that we will continue to provide independent, rigorous, accurate, balanced journalism as long as we are possibly able to do so. And we will notify them to the greatest extent when we are limited in what we can do for as long as we can.
You know, we're about to celebrate our 250th anniversary of this Madisonian experiment, which mentions the press in the Constitution. I mean, we're the only industry that's in the Constitution, a free, unfettered press. Do you sleep well at night today, especially when you're reporting inside this huge government entity? Do you believe that we're okay as an industry? Do you feel good about our future, or are you concerned?
You have to be concerned at this point when you look at layoffs across the industry, when you look at the pressure that's being applied, not just to individual media organizations, individual reporter, but there are people with vested interests in denigrating the concept of a free press. And we've seen that grow. So yeah, it's very concerning. And I think more than ever, having these examples of journalists going out into their communities and reporting news that tells the truth and backs it up with fact and attribution, that's more important than ever.
Eric Slavin, Jackie Smith from Stars and Stripes, thank you for joining us, helping us better understand what's happening inside one of the world's most unique news organizations. Please stay in touch with us, and let's just hope and pray that your reporters, Erica, stay safe as well as they do their job. We appreciate both of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.